Okay, I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. So if everybody please stand, Dasha is going to lead us in our invocation and pledges.
Sure, sounds good. It has been a long-standing tradition here at our school board meetings to start with prayer. And so at this time, if you are willing and wanting, please bow your head with me and pray. Dear Lord, as we meet today, just be with us. Please guide our thoughts, our ideas, our decisions. We ask that you continue to bless our Magnolia schools, our Magnolia community, as we continue to seek your wisdom, your guidance, your courage, and your strength. Be it with us with our deliberations and help to be wise in the decisions that we make for the good of all of our entire district, and for those who have put so much trust and confidence in our collective leadership. Please use our actions and words to be a light in a world that sometimes feels uncertain, especially now. So we thank you today for our blessings, for the successful outcomes for our schools, our school events, our district, our staff members, and our students. And in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. To the flag.
Thank you, Dasha. Okay, so our first rattle out of the box is you, I think.
What have I got here? National Principals Month. And where are they? I mean, if we had them here, we could recognize them, tell them how much we love and appreciate them. But as the board knows, we talked about last month, in recognition of this event this month, and that the country is sort of paying homage to the great work that our administrators and principals do, we gave them this night off. And you know, it's I think it's amazing how much they appreciate that one month that they have an opportunity just to be at home and watch a little bit of Monday Night Football or something. And not that they don't enjoy all the great things that come with student recognition and things that happen here, but we certainly appreciate them. And so that's the reason we're a little bit void tonight. But if they happen to be watching, principals, we appreciate you. So anyway.
Absolutely. They make our campuses tick, and we've got an example of a former one out here with us tonight. So we appreciate everything they do.
It's not Directors Month, but we went ahead and extended. I kind of got my, little in front of it and extended that to the directors last month, and they didn't miss that a bit. So, I mean, they were all over.
Well, as I recall,
and Nancy did happen to bring it up that somehow she had a report, and so she and Foy are the only two of the directors that had to, besides our normal, cast of characters over here, that on this side had to be here. But we certainly appreciate both of you for showing up for your reports today.
Absolutely. And I recall you promised that School Board Appreciation Month, we could take the night off too. Is that a way it went?
I don't know that I got there, but I mean, we can talk about it, so.
All right.
Mr. Will Hickman, we have been trying to coordinate this and to get you here and to get our student, Carson Collins, who's an amazing kiddo for us in our district, but Will represents the State Board of Education, and I think it's District 6, is that correct? And I think y'all have an opportunity to nominate outstanding students for some, for an award for that district, and that's what you're here for. And somehow our coordination didn't work with our directors being off and Carson. But what we will make sure we do is to follow through and get Carson here at a board meeting and make sure we present this to him. But we're going to go ahead and hear a presentation from you.
Dr. Stevens, President, Board of Trustees. My name is Will Hickman, representing State Board of Education, District 6. It's great to be at Magnolia ISD. Thank you for the invitation. Montgomery County was just added to my district 2 years ago with redistricting. My parents live in Conroe, so that's pretty neat to represent my parents. And I was just at our Austin board meeting, presented an award to an adult volunteer from Montgomery ISD. So it's great to be here down the road, have a student hero award. Before I do that, a quick Austin update on what we're doing at the state board. Last meeting, we adopted some new CTE courses. We worked on the library standards with TSLAC. Unfortunately, we had a litigation, so we had to pause that for a minute. Next meeting, we're working on Proclamation 24, the new science textbooks, some CTE textbooks, and then also textbook suitability and quality with HB 1605. So if you'd like me to come back sometime and kind of talk in more detail about what we're doing in Austin, I'd be happy to do that. But tonight I'm here to present a Student Hero Award to Carson Collins. And my apologies, I was supposed to be here in September. My schedule didn't allow that. So my apologies to Carson, but I'm here tonight and unfortunately she couldn't be here. But we chose her out of a number of outstanding nominees. And I'll just read this from her nomination. Carson Collins, a sixth grader in Magnolia ISD, exhibits the noble qualities of a student hero. Her empathy, generosity, and kindness towards others has been observed throughout her academic career, starting as early as first grade. At the young age of 7, she organized a toy drive after Hurricane Harvey, earning her recognition from the American Red Cross with her very own vest and coin. This same school year, she collaborated with her school administration and Texas Children's Hospital in the Woodlands to brainstorm a way she could spread joy to the kids at the hospital. Carson began creating holiday craft kits back in 2017 and continues this tradition 6 years later. She has helped produce thousands of patient smiles over the years and will continue to do so in the future. Carson's ability to spread joy to others is an admirable quality and one of a student hero. So I've got in the bag I'll leave a plaque, a medal, a proclamation, so if you please pass all that along to Carson, as well as my apologies for the scheduling mix-up, but I just wanted to come up and see you guys and pass that along to Carson. So congratulations to her, and I'm sure you can see why she was worthy of this award. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hickman. And again, we, as a school board and a district, we just want to thank you for your work with State Board and for the things that you guys do. And sometimes that is certainly maybe a thankless job because it does happen in a different context, and sometimes maybe this isn't in the most appreciative of the roles. But we do appreciate the work you do, particularly to safeguard the instructional materials and the quality of that and that work, and we do appreciate the effort that goes into that. I know there's a lot of works behind the scenes in making sure that the right material gets to our kiddos in those classrooms.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've got 3 kids in public school, and I think I get paid the same amount as the trustees. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate that.
I guess I'm still up because I have an Ag Show update, and I'm going to turn that over to Dr. Foy Campbell. He's our expert on all things Ag Show. I thought we had a good Ag Show.
Absolutely.
He's going to give us a little more details on it.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens, President Blizzard, and board members. In September, this September, we had our 39th annual Magnolia ISD Livestock Show. It was a great weekend. And I wanted to report to you that we had some really great showings by our students. The Grand Champion Steer by Cash Wooten brought in $17,500. Our Grand Champion Swine, Myla Wagner, $7,000. Our Grand Champion Lamb, Kylie Gregory, whose mom is a district employee, was $5,000. Grand Champion Goat is Quincy Walker, for $5,000. The grand champion turkey was Peyton Woods, $9,500. And then the grand champion broiler, which is a chicken, is Presley Whitehorn, and she sold that for $5,500. And the grand champion rabbit was Jenna Schaefer for $5,000. So this year, over $320,000 worth of scholarships were purchased by selling the animals and then some of the baked goods as well. And so we wanted to really thank our community for continually supporting Magnolia ISD's livestock show and Magnolia ISD in general, but specifically through this. And you see the same people year after year after year, and there are buckle sponsors, there are top purchasers, and you better not move in on their territory. They're going to buy the grand champion steer, they're going to sponsor the grand champion rabbit. We would also like to thank the students for their hard work, because they select the animal, then work with that animal. And when I grew up in Germany. When I first came to America, I worked at a department store, and one of the employees was late, and I said, "Why are you late?" And she said, "I was walking my pig," and I thought she was making it up, and apparently that's a thing. And so these kids work with these animals so well, and they get to know them well, and they train them, and then it's time to show them. We also want to thank their parents for their support, their time, and their emotional support, and then also sometimes financially up front, and the cost of feed is going up, so thank you to them. We also want to thank our ag teachers, and I've worked with many teachers in our district, and I won't say that a group outworks another, but no one outworks an ag teacher when I look at what they do. And also want to thank our parents on the committee. So we have a livestock show committee comprised of the ag teachers, myself, and then some parents, 3 from West and 3 from High. And those parents work so hard, and we could not put on the ag show without them. And while I'm here, I just wanted to let you know that the flower arrangement in front of you was brought to you today by Magnolia West High School floral design class under the direction of Maddie Boudreau. And the apple bread in front of you was brought to you by the advanced culinary class at Magnolia High School under the direction of Brooke Gentry. And I want to thank you, each and every board member, for your continued support to CTE. It's seen, it's felt, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Any questions? To remind all those CTE parents and those ag parents and teachers, and you're obviously aware of this, but we've got those plans for the improvements that are part of the bond for the CTE and for the ag arena to be improvements. Those are forthcoming, and we're going to get to them. We've kind of been.
We're working with Mr. Bruner. We met again last week and submitted those to Mr. Bruner, and we're continuing back and forth with the architects and so forth. So we're looking for those improvements, and it's going to be the show next year is going to be exciting because people are going to walk into a brand new looking barn with lots of additions. So thank you to our voters for that.
All right.
I was just going to say that it was my first time to attend the livestock show, and it was just incredible. I've told my family that we're all going next year as a whole family. And I know Stacy was there and a few of us, so thank you. It was remarkable, really cool to see.
Great entertainment value when people are bidding against each other and things like that. So, and we had several teachers, CTE teachers from other districts who just came as parents, and they said they'd never seen anything like the community support that we have here. So it's something that we should not take for granted and continue to appreciate.
Are we still planning on doing the Christmas in the Barn again this year?
Yes.
It's a great event.
I do not have the date, but at Magnolia High School, the CTE teachers host a Christmas at the Barn, and Santa comes every year.
Yeah.
So we're doing that again this year.
We've gone to that for years. It's a great program.
Good. We'll let you know the date.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. And last, but certainly not least, Nancy Rodriguez to give us a bilingual progress report. Those at least I know once a year, but sometimes if not more, we have them. But the annual program report, well, there you go.
Well, good evening, Dr. Stevens, President Blizzard, and the board. I need a clicker. I present to you today the annual report for our emergent bilingual students. So if you hear me say EB, that's what I'm referring to. Sorry. The one, I know, the one on the side's moving, but these are not. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, first of all, the required program and goals is that for our population, we are required to implement a bilingual program, and that's for grades pre-K through 6. And some new terminology from the update to Chapter 89 is to develop primary language literacy. So that's very important. It gives credit to the fact that we are teaching in 2 languages in the bilingual program. Okay. The next slide is the graph that shows the different special language program results over a few years. I'm sorry, that's even smaller. The second line from the top is the line that graphs the progress of one-way dual language programs in the country, and it shows that those students supersede, their results supersede students that are only learning in English. The next slide is my favorite. It shows how our population of emergent bilingual students is growing. So from the 21-22 school year, we had about 17% of our population as emergent bilingual students. The next year at 18.8, and this year we're at 20%. And those are languages represented. We've got 32 known languages, and then 3 are listed as unknown because there is an indigenous language reported, but it's not a selection in the PEIM system. And so it's very diverse. And of course, for example, the Yugoslavian, that's 1 child in the district. So just to give you an idea. Next, these are our numbers as far as students that are being served and those that are not. So at the elementary level, which is considered pre-K through 6, we have almost 1,300 students being served through the one-way dual language program, 790 of those, and the alternative language program, 504. And that alternative language program is whenever we don't have bilingual certified teachers in those grade levels, we have to implement a special plan. Those served in ESL, 312, not served, and that is due to parent choice. Parents deny program services. We have 61 at the elementary level, and then we have 17. This is as of the week before the break. We had 17 students pending, but I got a email today saying we had an influx of new students, so they're continuing to enroll, as we know. At the secondary level, we have 1,147 students served in ESL, 77 not served due to parent choice, and 14 pending. Moving on to academic progress, this is STAR reading, grades 3 through 8, English and Spanish tests. From the left is students who did not meet, and moving along to approaches, meets, and masters. Next is secondary English 1, is the bar graphs on the top, and then the bottom is English 2. Any questions about these slides? Okay, next up, we have English proficiency, which in the state of Texas, we have the TELPAS test. And our students in grades 2 through 12 take this test online, completely online. It's very similar to STAR. And as you can see, our students do fairly well in the listening domain. That's what it's showing from left to right, it's beginning, intermediate, advanced, and advanced high. And then we have speaking. Speaking is the test that we are, that's most challenging for our students. As you can tell, the advanced high is not as high as listening. TELPAS reading is next. And then writing. So again, this shows the advanced high is low, but I must mention, writing went online. So all the way from our second grade babies, they had to type their responses online. And of course, it's challenging to type online in the younger grades. So next up is the composite level growth of 1,737 tests in grades 3 through 12, all 4 domains. 18 students grew 2 levels, 280 students grew 1 level, and 1,009 stayed about the same, and about 430 regressed. And I must mention again that writing went online, and I think that posed a big challenge. Same thing happened with speaking went online. I'd like to show y'all on these pie charts. On the left, it is STAR. I'll try to explain this. The purple and orange show masters and meets of 3rd grade students who took STAR reading in English. And on the right, on that pie chart, the pink and darker, that looks like lime green, on the chart. And I've got squares to highlight. So that shows us that when students are proficient in English and they get advanced or advanced high, they're more than likely to get meets and masters on the STAR reading test. So it's a good indicator. Also, another point I'd like to make is that the majority of our 3rd grade students are coming from bilingual classrooms where they've been learning in both languages and they're able to make this kind of progress in English. Okay. Next is reclassification. So these numbers aren't very high at all, but we know that most of our students get caught up with the TELPAS speaking and now speaking and writing. So in the past, we've had to go off of the reclassification criteria of advanced high across all language domains. And a lot of our students aren't able to reclassify, meaning they're no longer considered English learners or emergent bilingual students. But there is good news that starting with this year, the spring 24 tests, if students get a composite rating of advanced high and they pass STAR in English, they're able to reclassify. So last year, about 287 students would have met reclassification with that criteria. So we're going to continue to work hard, use the tools that we have to get our kiddos to practice online before they take that TELPAS test. The bilingual exception is something else that I have to report on, and this just shows that over the years we've continued to have a shortage of bilingual certified teachers, and that's when we have to apply for the temporary bilingual exception. So when we went from last year 17 bilingual teachers short to 28, and that is because we have many more students, less teachers, and that application will be submitted in November. And last but not least, these are some of the things that are included in the comprehensive professional development plan for those teachers that are under exception, meaning they do not have bilingual certification, or as an ESL partner, they're lacking certification in that area. So we have bilingual coaches at the 5 bilingual campuses, district-wide focus on interactive language-rich opportunities in all content areas, and test prep opportunities. And that's the same for bilingual and ESL teachers. And that is all that I have. If y'all have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
What percentage of bilingual students is Spanish first?
The majority, I don't have that percentage, but it is probably 95% of our.
And then on the kids that are like other languages, there's like 30 other languages, something like that. Like, how many of those do we actually have instruction in? Like, how many languages do we actually service besides Spanish and English?
We only have to service Spanish at this time. Once we have 20 or more students in a certain grade level of the other language, then we'd have to implement that. For example, our neighboring school districts, Klein, they offer a Vietnamese program because they meet the requirements of that population.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the ESL strategies work across the board with all students, whatever the language is, as they transition toward English. And so, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Okay, well,
That's the end of my show.
we're going to skip taking a break and keep right on going. Ms. Hinkleman, do we have anybody signed up to speak? Yes, sir, we don't. Okay. Moving right along to our consent agenda. This portion of the agenda consists of items to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested. So is separate discussion requested? If not, then if there's not any questions, we need a motion that the board approve consent agenda items A through D. Sonia first, seconded by Dasha. All in favor? That motion passes. Okay, and Dr. Wonderful is next.
Thank you, sir. So just a little background for some of the newer board members. Back in 1999, the state established a new financial accountability system intended to provide our stakeholders a snapshot of how well the district is performing financially. And each year, we're required to give a presentation on our score and to also open it for public comment. Okay, so as we do every October or November, tonight we'll go over the the first report for and this information is for the 21-22 school year or fiscal 2022. Okay, I'll go by pretty quickly, guys, but let me know if you have any questions. Again, this was established in '99. Currently, there were no changes from prior year. This year, it's kind of an interesting setup, which is not surprising coming from TEA, I suppose. But there's 20 indicators, but there's 4 indicators for one reason or another that are not being scored this year. Most of that is driven by economic conditions. There are 4 critical indicators, whereas an answer of no to any of those automatically subjects the district to an F or a substandard achievement. Beyond that, similar to the STAR academic model, for the last several years, they've added a grade as well to each, and you can see that it follows a normal format. And then finally, there are some ceiling indicators where failure to meet the perfect score on these immediately subject you to a limited score. Okay, so. And then, let's see, so here's a history of our first scores. You can see that, you know, we've scored very well the past many, many years. I'm happy to present tonight that we scored once again a 98 out of 100, and we'll go through the indicators and allow you to ask any questions. Again, these first 4 indicators are what's known as critical indicators, so an answer of no to these automatically would subject a district to an F. Was our annual financial report submitted on time? And of course, the answer to that is yes. Was there an unmodified opinion by our external auditor, which is the strongest opinion available? And the answer to that is yes. Was the district in compliance with payment of all of our debt agreements for the end of the year for our principal and debt for bonded indebtedness, voter approved? And of course, the answer to that is yes, and then some. We've paid off a considerable amount of debt early, as the board is aware of. Did we make timely payments to a couple of the critical locations via TRS, Texas Workforce Commission, IRS? And the answer to that is yes as well. Now we transition to some of those that will have specific ratios or amounts and things of that nature and scores associated with those. Was the average change in fund balance over 3 years less than 25% decrease, which obviously is intended to show the financial strength and or progress for districts in terms of the direction that we're heading. For the past 3 years, our total increase in fund balance in total was $1.7 million. So we passed that, of course. Indicator number 7 was the number of days of cash on hand and current investments in our general fund sufficient to cover operating expenses. And I'll come back to this one in a moment because it is the only indicator where we narrowly missed a perfect score. But I want to provide some details and substance to that in just a moment. But anything greater than 90 would get a 10 out of 10, and then it's scaled below that. And so we received 8 out of 10. And again, I'll go further into detail on that in just a moment. Indicator number 8 was the measure of current assets to current liability ratio sufficient to cover short-term debt, which is your current year liability to asset ratio as it compares to your current year debt requirement. So anything greater than 3 would score you a perfect 10 out of 10. And so I wanted to show these, historically, I didn't really show a comparison to some of our neighboring districts on these slides, but I believe Mr. Blizzard mentioned last year that not only were we scoring well, but we were blowing some of these numbers out of the water. So I wanted to provide more substance this year. So you can see how we compare there to some of our neighboring districts. Tomball would be narrowly ahead of us in this ratio, which is a good position to be in. And you can see how we compare to the other two. Any questions on that? Indicator number 9, did we have a balanced budget and or did our reserves exceed 60 days? And the answer to that was yes, so we received a 10 out of 10. Indicator 11 was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets sufficient to support long-term solvency. And this is the indicator where there's some flexibility if a district's enrollment growth had exceeded a certain level of 7% or a student total student amount of 1,000 students the previous 3 years. Ultimately, to give districts some credence for having additional debt than average districts because of your growth of the district. So we obviously did not meet that threshold, so we did not automatically pass. But you can see how we compare here to the other districts. Anything less than a 0.6 gives you a perfect score. And so we were at a 0.50 where you can see our neighboring districts, none of those would have been able to score perfectly on this, but they had met the increase in student enrollment threshold. So they did receive 10 out of 10. But as it relates to the ratio itself, we scored very well. Any questions on that? Okay. Indicator number 12. Man, this is blurry up here. Okay, here we go. And this is something we've talked about many times over prior to passage of our previous bond in particular, but was the debt per $100 of assessed property value ratio sufficient to support future debt repayments? Anything that's less than 4 receives a perfect 10. So you can see of our group, we are the only district who received a perfect score in this category. And this was obviously this was prior because it was 21-22, so it was prior to adding in the debt associated with our 2022 bond, but even so. This is taking a while on this for it to clear up. I can't hardly read it. Okay, Indicator number 18 was the annual financial report free of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, laws related to local, state, and federal funds? And the answer to that is yes. We did not have any findings. 19, did the school district post the required financial information to our webpage, such as our budget, tax rate information, et cetera? And the answer to that is yes. So we received a 5 of 5. And number 20, did the school board members discuss the district's property values at a meeting within 120 days? And of course, we've talked about that many times over when we're doing our tax rate setting, et cetera. So that kind of wraps us up in terms of the different indicators. I went through those pretty quickly, but I wanted to dissect the indicator 7 where we narrowly missed the perfect score. You know, oftentimes when we're talking about the district's financial strength, we talk about fund balance, right? And I think that's the most important thing. And so this indicator is you know, sort of trying to talk about fund balance, but it's not, because it's talking about the cash on hand. So there are different accounting things that go on where some funds may owe the general fund at any given time because of the timing of the receipt of the funds. So when you look at this, if we were to compare to total fund balance, we would be at 99 days, which would easily exceed the 90-day threshold for a perfect score. However, because of some of the ESSER funds and candidly, some procedures that we needed to put in place, some of the cash that was due to the general fund, which you can see in the third column, if you go down there. So for this, you're looking at 1110 and 1120 to generate the number here. But if you look lower, there was $6.4 million due to the general fund, which when you add that to the cash, it gives you a more accurate picture of what's closer to fund balance. And ultimately, that money was moved, but it wasn't moved until a couple of weeks past the end of the fiscal year. So that's something that we've cleaned up to make sure we've established processes and procedures in the business office to make sure that we score higher on this. So we could have had 100 if not from a timing issue and then from an accounting issue. And so we'll make sure that we receive 100 on this for next year and the years thereafter. So how do we compare versus other districts? And again, this is one of the reasons why I went back to some of the thoughts of Mr. Blizzard last year, because, you know, most districts score pretty well on this. I mean, you saw our history and how well we've done, but some of those numbers, we sort of blow the others out of the water. But you can see as it compares to some of those districts that we often look up to an extent as it relates to academics, finances, and things of that nature. I mean, we scored the same as Conroe and Tomball, and better than some of the larger districts as well. And I forget what Montgomery, what their primary issue was. I think they had non-compliance in the audit, so they scored lower than some of the others. All stated, we're pleased with the results. Sort of kicking ourselves for not making the accounting as clean as it could be to make sure we were actually maximizing the score, you know, for that one indicator purposes. And so that wraps up the presentation, guys. Be happy to answer any questions by the board. And then the next step, we'll need to open it for public comment. I know there's a lot of numbers and vocabulary involved that we went through very quickly, but we're pleased with the result. I mean, I think it suggests that we're doing things appropriately financially and that we're stable as well.
to show, for you to show all the other districts around us, is not necessarily to give us an ounce of credit for anything, but to pay credit to you guys, everybody in this room that has an impact on that, because that's fantastic.
And yes, sir, and thank you. And obviously, it's driven by the collective decisions of all of us. Yes, sir.
Okay, if there's not any questions, we're going to now conduct a public hearing regarding the financial accountability rating, the first report that Dr. Morris just presented. Any persons having comments or testimony regarding the report may come to the mic and speak to the board at this time. This is a hearing and not an opportunity for questioning the board or administration. Any questions should be addressed to the appropriate administrator outside of this hearing and board meeting. Kind of quiet.
Of course, I don't have a mic, so I can't talk.
Here we go.
There we go. Technical issues are piling up today. I just want to appreciate the work you guys are doing and behind the scenes on some of the accounting processes to make sure that we get some clear, directions that next year we're going to get credit for where those dollars are in it. And also the presentation was very simple to look at and see this time. I appreciate it. Yes, very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so if there are not any more comments, we're going to conclude this hearing, as we call it. And I think you're going to talk to us about some more things, aren't you?
Okay, and I'll give just a little background on this too for the newer board members. In the month of August, obviously the board approves our budget each and every year, and the administration has some flexibility of moving some money around, but anytime we increase or decrease an appropriation or shift money across accounting function, it requires board approval. And so if you recall, we adopted the budget last, when I'm talking about the 22-23 budget, okay, this is the final amendment for it. We had one budget amendment in July, and so what I'm bringing to you this evening is the final budget amendment, and we sort of adapted our approach on this the last couple of years to allow a little more time after the end of the fiscal year, which is August 31st, to help us clean some things up and make sure that we've reconciled our state aid and et cetera, to be more accurate with the end product of what you will see in the audit, okay? And so I'll do my best to look from here. It's not popping up. So basically what we're doing on the revenue side of things is we are adjusting the revenue estimates within the sub-object code in order to more accurately reflect the actuals, or what we've earned, if you will, okay? So what you'll see there is there's an increase in the local revenue, which is associated with a greater than anticipated return on our investments, which we're very conservative on. And then there is a slight increase in SPED based on qualifying expenses for SHARs, and a slight decrease, a relatively slight decrease on state aid because of the things that we've talked about in the past with enrollment projections, a challenging attendance percentage year, et cetera. So the end product is a reduction in the revenue side of things of approximately $800,000. And then you'll see sort of the balance of that on the expenditure side. And let me back up real quick, because what is included in your packet is actually the amendment from July. It was an error on my part. I sent it to Chris I was using the July preliminary end of year narrative, updating it, and then I didn't realize that it had the backup from, so I'm sorry if there's any confusion, but now you have this in front of you. Quickly on the expenditure side, I think the most important thing is to note that the end product is balanced as it relates to revenue versus expenses. There's three primary things that we're looking at on the expenditure side. Number one, increasing instruction. due to adding teachers throughout the year, primarily associated with SPED. Now, the good news is we're no longer relying on formula transition grants, so an increase in SPED participation led to additional revenue in that area. And then the other two things, one, we're reclassing some expenses to some other funds that can cover some of those qualifying expenses. And then finally, we are shifting some funds across function to make sure that all of our payroll accounts are correct. So I want to specify one thing on that, if you will. And some of those adjustments in the proposed amendment column look very large, but if you look at the end product of the adjusted budget and column 4, I included the 21-22 final expenditures within those functions, so you could compare those items. So let's take, for instance, I know recently there was some information that came out about our function 21 expenses increasing, et cetera, and I've sort of talked to the board about how there would be a final amendment that would make 22-23 more accurate as it compared to 23-24. So you'll see in, let's, for instance, function 13, we're decreasing the budget by $220,000, and we're increasing the instructional leadership budget by $185,000, where the end product is close to $1.8 million and 2.2. Well, look to the column to the right of that. That's almost exactly what we spent in the prior year. So again, there's some relatively large moves, but ultimately there were some corrections from the initial budget, if you will, in terms of where some of the payroll was located. And we've done some things to make sure that we've cleaned that up as well, that we can avoid some of that in the future. But we felt confident that the overall budget was accurate, but we just need to move some money around within the functions. So again, I think or hope that the most important thing is that the end product is a final balanced budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And then we also have one quickly.
Dr. Morris?
Oh, yes, sir.
Just quick question on that. I noticed $1.5 million on the state thing. That's not a small number.
It's not. No.
And how much percent did that equate to when your comment 2 here?
As it relates to so it's about, it's just about $1 million for every 1% of attendance. Is that what
Okay. So we're 1.5%.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I know we talked about this, it might have been an executive session or during one of our budget workshops, but, the state as a whole, there was a slight decrease in post-COVID attendance, but it's something that we are really focusing on with our principals. We've made it a priority. We averaged, for the years prior to COVID, our average was approximately 95.4% in attendance, and this past year it was 94.3%. So it was over 1% that helped lead to that 1.5 million. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because that was one of the primary motivators. It wasn't necessarily that we, undershot our enrollment projection by that large amount. So yes, sir.
Right.
And again, we're doing some things to hopefully correct some of that. Really delving into PEIMS coding at the campus level, and it's important. It's never been more important, and that's one of the reasons, quite honestly, that there was some chatter in the regular session about focus or making the commissioner, if you will, come up with some sort of mechanism that allowed districts to be funded closer to enrollment than attendance. Now, that would not go into effect until the next biennium, but even so.
I can't point to the exact number, but everybody is struggling with attendance post-COVID. The school attendance almost has become it seems like it's an optional deal. I mean, they're here, but if there's a reason to miss, we miss. And so we just have never recovered. And I don't think statewide, and I think that's why there has been this conversation about maybe it's enrollment versus, attendance percentage, or that you do factor the attendance in there somehow, but it is more of a stable number. This is obviously in the state's advantage, when kids are not showing up. So
And I guess another thing, Mr. Blizzard, to your point, you'll note that our local revenue overall went up about 530,000 versus the original budget, which is a good thing. But that takes into consideration a balance of many, many different things. You know, we talked about, and I think in executive session recently, about the loss in property value after certified values that led to every district that I know of and Montgomery County losing money in their current year budget. And I know there's been some changes over at the appraisal district that we're told that some of that should be corrected in current year, but that number would have been much, much higher and would have better offset the loss in the state aid had it not been an anomaly for the year as well. So,
For sure.
And I think it's a good conversation. I mean, there needs to be some accountability on us to get those kids to school, to encourage it and to maybe apply some pressure on parents. But the point that I think is well raised in all this is our expenses are really based on the fact of those kids being enrolled. We hire teachers, we fund classrooms, we buy supplies based on how many kids we have enrolled that are in it. Their attendance, it's a variable in it, but when you're basing this on attendance, we lose money for kids that we're actually having to serve.
and our point is that, you know, a kid's absence doesn't mean that we're not still paying for the cost associated with that kid. And, you know, and there's been several recommendations. Well, yeah, I mean, hold us accountable. There needs to be accountability, but included in the academic model, if you must, but don't cheat us on funding. So.
And two, when we're projecting things, every percent that we're off matters.
Well, I mean, yeah, the projections for current year were based on, from enrollment purposes, were based on demographer estimates. And attendance was based on 7-year average prior to COVID.
Right.
And then, I guess quickly, guys, food service fund, in short, participation continued to increase. So we're increasing the revenue. And please recall that there are limitations on what we can have in fund balance. So we very intentionally have spent some of that fund balance down. We set a target of $1 million, so you'll see a deficit in the food service fund, but it is not a recurring deficit. It is for one-time expenses for capital outlay needs. That was very intentional. You cannot have too much money in fund balance, or TDA will make you create a plan to spend it down. So it's a good problem to have. Be nice if we could spend it elsewhere too. And that wraps us up. I recommend the approval of the final end of year amendments.
And just to clarify, what we're voting on is last year's final budget, 22-23 school year.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we still need to come back after Austin makes some decisions and Austin.
Yes, ma'am. To be clear, yes, ma'am. This is for the 22-23 school year.
Okay.
There's been no amendment thus far for current year. We hope that there is some.
Everybody else good? Okay, if we don't have any questions, then we need a motion that we approve the end of the year budget amendments for the general fund and food service fund for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2023. Motion by, yes, Jordan, and Stacia is seconded, either way. And all in favor? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We should, I think we did for you, didn't we?
All right, I got tongue-tied there for a minute. Okay, so
Never showed.
anything else we got to go over? Everybody good? All right. The board will now recess to move into closed executive session for the purposes permitted by A, consultation with attorney pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, B, personnel discussion recommendations pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, and finally, discussion of purchase, sale, exchange, or value of real property pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072. So thank you very much. All right, we're back. I need a motion that we adjourn this meeting. Motion by Jay, seconded by Sonia. All in favor? That motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.